But again, thanks for being here today. So this is an official public hearing for our 2023 and 2024 storms allocation from HUD with the Community Development Block Grant Funds. So I'm Justin Domer. I'm a Deputy Secretary at FloridaCommerce over the Community Development Programs. And one of those offices under my umbrella is the Office of Long-Term Resiliency that houses the Rebuild Florida program and manages all the CDBG DR, the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funds. So in this public hearing, we go through the action plan, background of the process, background of the office, some before and after photos of previous storm programs that we've run, and then and a lot of details of that. So I do want to introduce my team that's up here. So Alicia Behenna, right here to my left, she's the bureau chief over our subrecipient programs. So the programs where we make agreements directly with the local governments that are eligible in the allocation. And then this is Audrey Irwin. She is our deputy bureau chief over the direct housing programs. So the programs where we do the repair and replacement of homes directly for LMI eligible homeowners. That's under Audrey over here. So, and then we also have Matea here from our communications. He's helping us over there. And then we have some other folks there too. Us in the back and then Maddie outside. So next slide. Okay. A little bit of background. So FloridaCommerce is the governor designated state authority responsible for all of the HUD funds. So all of the U.S. Housing Urban Development funds, some of those being the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery. We also have Community Development Block Grant Small Cities funds as well. That's in a different office under my little umbrella here. So we do that through our Office of Long-Term Resiliency. It's also referred to as Rebuild Florida. A little bit of background on that. In September 2018 is when we created the Rebuild Florida program, and we have been learning a lot since then. So also to note, the CDBG DR funds are considered what the federal government refers to as last resort for unmet needs. So those funds kick in once, if you're talking about housing, if someone has private insurance, you have to exhaust that first. Also, if you received FEMA dollars, those need to be exhausted. And then if you still have unmet needs, that's where these funds kick in. So that's, and we do focus these to what we refer to as a vulnerable population. So we do have to have HUD income limits that we are required to follow for these funds. And then we also do try to prioritize senior and disabled, and also folks with dependents. Sorry, it's not working. Next slide, please. So why are we here? So the federal government, HUD, on early January announced that the state of Florida would be receiving a new allocation of the CDBG DR funds, the disaster recovery. And that was early January for $925 million. We have 47 counties that are eligible for the fund. So the people that live in those 47 counties, and also the county governments and city and town governments as well, are eligible. The storms that are eligible, so these funds do need a disaster tieback. The storms are hurricanes Idalia, Debbie, Helene, Milton, and then the 2024 tornadoes that happened last May in the Tallahassee area. And this weather today was a little bit like that. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's a really good visual map of those eligible counties. So you also will see, so our eligible counties are the green and the blue. And then the yellow counties are what HUD refers to as entitlement communities, to where those counties, and there's 9 counties and 2 cities that are yellow, they are receiving the same type of funds, but directly from HUD. So they will be running their own programs, and the folks that live in those counties and cities will not be eligible for the state's funds. So your counties, the city here in Alachua, or Alachua County, Gainesville, City of Alachua, you are part of the state funds. The yellow, they're going to be running their own program. Another just reminder, it's 925 million that we're building programs for. So what we do in this action plan that I keep kind of referring to, we actually build out what the programs are going to look like. So how the 925 million will be spent. And we do that through a data process where we do an unmet needs assessment, and we have someone and a team that looks at the actual data. But then what we do on top of that is we visit every community that's been impacted. So we visited all 47 counties, some of the cities in there as well. We held 12 community and stakeholder workshops, 6 communities, stakeholder, 47 counties, like I said, listening sessions. And so we took that data that's from the folks that are actually who have actually been impacted, and we included that in the action plan so that we can come up with the best plan of how to spend the funds. It does sound like a ton of money, but when you spread it out across, the needs of that many communities, it does go quickly, and we all know how much it costs to repair things these days and rebuild. So next slide, please. Okay, so a visual timeline of the process of how we do this. So you'll see top left, disaster impact. Obviously that's self-explanatory. So then HUD does some formal processes to where one of those things is called the Federal Register, which we received also in January, I believe. And then where we are right now is in the submitting of the action plan, which is the fourth little arrow. And that's where we build the action plan. And right now we finished a draft, and it's about 112 pages, somewhere in there. And it's on our website. It's out for public comment. So we do want as much public comment as we can get, whether it's in the form of this today or emails or phone calls, or any of the other meetings that we've had. So we do want all of the public input that we can get to make sure we're, reaching all the folks that we can. So then we will have that finalized and submitted to HUD by April 21st. So the 21st of this month, that goes to HUD. They have, is it down to 30 or 45 days? 45 days. They told me they wanted to do it in 30, do the approval, because they understand, time is money. So then what we're expecting is to hopefully have that HUD grant agreement, by sometime this summer, early fall, and then start doing applications maybe as late as this year or as early as late this year, or even early next calendar year, potentially. We've learned how to kind of squeeze the timeline. And so that top line is typically a year, but we've gotten really good at squeezing it down, and I think we can do it even better this time. So next slide, please. So here's a little background of what our Office of Long-Term Resiliency and Rebuild Florida is currently managing. So right now, including the 925 million that we're talking about today, there's about $4.3 billion in funding that's under management of our office here. And that's done through those 7 allocations that you can see on the screen, Hermine, Matthew being the oldest, which we're working on closeout. That's also one of our smaller programs. And then most recently, we stood up the Hurricane Ian program, which is on the right-hand side of the screen for 910 million. And we started that housing program and had homes completed in
5 days.
How many?
205 days.
205 days average. We completed the first home before the second anniversary of this. So we have learned a lot of lessons learned. We're getting really good at this. We work with general contractors that, they have a very large capacity. They work these programs across the Southeast United States, some across the country, but a lot of them have moved to Florida because of how much work is here. So we try to get people home as quickly as we can. And these funds that you see here, the 4.3 billion, is almost even-ish split between grant agreements that we work with local governments and then in the direct housing program too. Slide, please. Okay, so a little bit of the timeline I was kind of mentioning earlier is a better visual. So January 16th, HUD announced the funds, and at that dollar amount that you can see there, 925 million, we started immediately doing our listening sessions with all communities and the workshops. And then this whole time we've had our internal policy team building that action plan. We've got a great group of folks that are passionate and know what they're doing, thank God. And we'll have that submitted to HUD later this month. Next slide, please. Okay. Another little bit of a visual of kind of where we are, where the dark blue circle is that 30-day public comment that we're doing for the action plan. Next slide. A little bit about the counties that are eligible. So HUD does tell you which counties you must serve. They call them MIDs. You know, the government loves a good acronym or initialism. MID means most impacted and distressed. So HUD identified 22, and then the state, we have the ability to look at the data and see what are the other counties that were directly impacted. And we look at that through the FEMA data as well. So we added the additional 25 to bring it up to the 47. We just didn't want people left out. But these funds are, you know, they're important, and sometimes for the people that we serve, it's their only option. And so we want to get it out there. Next slide. So again, the map here. So it shows the state designated, that the ones that the state was looking to add on the left, with Alachua being one of those, and then the HUD designated 22 on the right. And next slide, please. So what I think I briefly talked about an unmet needs assessment earlier, and that's the data-driven approach to how we build the action plan. And so this is a good example of why we need input from the public. So in the second paragraph, second bullet there, it shows that the data showed that the remaining need in infrastructure specifically was only $147 million. But when we met with all of the communities, that's not necessarily accurate. There is still a much greater need out there. So that's why we do want to hear from the people that, again, they know, you know more about your communities than we do, because we're up in Tallahassee and you're at home, so you know what's going on. So this is a good example of why we need to be here. And then what that did show, though, is the full unmet need of our eligible communities based on the data is about 3 billion. And again, we have 925 million. So next slide, please. And then this is the table from our action plan, the draft action plan that's out there. So on the left-hand side, it's showing you the numbers that the data came up with. And we do look at FEMA, SBA, and all of those resources that we can get, showing that housing is a little over 3 billion, infrastructure being 146 million. And then you'll see the total unmet need is closer to 3.9 billion. Then on the right-hand side, you'll see the breakout of the 925 million. And it's almost an even split right now between housing and infrastructure. And that's where we think is the best approach to approach this. So administrative dollars is a 5% of the allocation. That's what HUD requires us to do. And then planning funds are some other funds that we set aside for the administration of the programs. And then you'll see again the 434 million that we're proposing to put to housing and 425 million for infrastructure. The infrastructure will also include, and Alicia will go into this a little more detail, but infrastructure includes those local governments that will apply directly to us for their needs. We also do what's called a hazard mitigation grant match to FEMA does it. HMGP is what they call it, hazard mitigation grant. FEMA funds 75%, and then we have the ability to fund the 25% match that FEMA requires. It's rare that we can't match it. There are some instances where the federal dollars don't want to match the federal dollars, but this is one of the rare occurrences that we have the ability to do that. So that's the breakout of the 925. And with that, I think Audrey's going to take over for a minute.
Yes, thank you, Justin. Next slide. So our proposed programs based on not only our unmet needs assessment, but also our work out in the field. In order for us to utilize our federal funding across all 47 communities, increase housing stock and reduce existing housing mitigations that exist, we will be launching our housing repair and replacement program, and we will allocate $434 million directly to the housing repair and replacement program, or our HRP. Oh, 434 million, my apologies. And then additionally, we will have an infrastructure repair program where we will allocate 400 million directly to that, as well as 25 million to the hazard mitigation grant match program. Next slide. And so we'll jump into the HRRP. The HRRP will assist and prioritize the most vulnerable homeowners and property owners impacted by our 2023 and 2024 storms. The program most directly benefits individuals within those mid areas by repairing and replacing storm damaged single-family homeowner occupied homes. That was a mouthful. Applicants to this program will be prioritized based on vulnerability such as income, disability, age, and presence in a mid area. Currently, we have deployed our housing assessment for 2023 and 2024 storm impacted homeowners. So that is available on our webpage, which we will display at the end of this presentation. Potentially eligible impacted homeowners may be invited to complete a brief survey after completing the pre-application assessment or that 2023-2024 storm impacted survey. And yes, so if there are any questions, we will address those at the end. Next slide.
One thing to note here is it is important to note that the eligible homes they need to have been occupied by the owner at the time. So it needed to be primary residence at the time of the storm that you're saying, caused the damage. When it says rental properties are eligible, what that means is the landlord as the rental property owner, but then that landlord must keep it as a low income rental according to the HUD limits. So again, HUD income, but also HUD will help. There's an equation that you come up with the rent that is appropriate for that person based on their income. So when it says rental properties, that's what that
means. Yes, and yes, there needs to be a legal ownership stake and primary residency during those 2023 and 2024 disasters. All right. And so recognizing that the 434 million will likely not address all needs, at-risk and vulnerable populations with those greatest needs will be prioritized, as we said, and at minimum 70% of the program funds must meet an LMI or low to moderate income national objective. And those are set forth by HUD. FloridaCommerce will prioritize very low and low income households with the greatest prioritization for households with incomes less than 80% of area median income. So that is what designates as LMI, is 80% or less of AMI or area median income. Households with one or more of the following characteristics will be prioritized and invited to apply at the earliest applicable phase. And as Justin mentioned earlier, these are going to be households with a minor in the home or a dependent, households with a elderly or folks over the age of 62, and households with special needs or special accommodations. Next slide. Okay, so after the state action plan is submitted to HUD and approved, the team will begin designing our program to meet the needs of the community members. Once the program is launched, those who are eligible and completed the pre-application survey, as I mentioned earlier, will be invited to apply first. Other citizens who are interested in applying who did not complete that application survey, we will launch a full application cycle and they will be invited afterwards. Applicants will be served in a phased process designed to serve those most vulnerable individuals first. So those in phase 1 will be served first, then phase 2, so on and so forth.
Those phases are broken out by income levels.
Yes, income level as well as vulnerability criterion.
And a lot of this is kind of back to how I was saying, 925 million, again, a lot of money, but the need is great. So we have to figure out a way to kind of make it to where you're serving those folks that need it the most first, you highlight them. So.
Yeah. All right. So here we have a Hurricane Michael housing success story. Starting off, Hurricane Michael has had many successful reconstructions, and this is a great example of one. This reconstruction is in Ebro, Florida, which is in Washington County in the Panhandle. This was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. The awarded amount was $268,000. Key turnover occurred June 2023, and this included resiliency measures with impact-resistant windows, compliance with green building standards, and impact-resistant doors. And so one of the efficiencies that we've created in order to protect HUD's investment is where a manufactured home existed previously. If this is owned land and zoning or the HOA allows it, we will replace with a stick-built or concrete base and block structure. Like I said, in order to protect HUD's investment, not only that, to increase housing stock within your local community.
So mobile homes are eligible. And like Audrey was saying, this is an example of the homeowner previously had a mobile home, but they had their own lot that allowed, you know, a stick-built home, as HUD refers to it. And so we're able to offer that. It is a choice. We know that some folks that live in a mobile home, that's what they can afford because, you know, again, these homes it is theirs. They will own it. They will be required to maintain it and taxes and insurance and things like that. So we don't want to set anybody up for, you know, a bad situation, but we want to, you know, put them in something that if they want, you know, is even stronger. So, and then the Hurricane Michael housing program, we finished that in less than 2 years. It's the fastest housing program that these HUD dollars have ever funded across the country. We're very proud of that. We did 1,000 homes in that program, 979 actually. So that was a good one. Yeah.
All right, next slide. And here we have an IRMA success story. And so for this home, we can see the before and after photos. This is a stick-built reconstruction in Jacksonville, Florida, aka Duval County. The construction of this home was completed in November of 2023. The resilience features in this home include impact-resistant doors, windows, and an impact-resistant and resilient roof system. Next slide. And we have another one. This is a manufactured home or mobile home replacement. In this one, this is a 3-bed, 2-bath located in Lewiston, Florida, in Hendry County, so South Florida. The construction of this home was completed in December of 2022. And next slide. This one is from our most recent storm that we are standing up right now, the Rebuild Florida Hurricane Ian Housing Repair and Replacement Program. This one is the before and after of a reconstruction in that program. This is in Putnam County of a 3-bed, 2-bath home. The total award amount was $342,000. The applicant applied for this program on May 6, 2024, and this home was completed November 11, 2024. So this one was completed in 205 days. And just to give you a little bit of insight, a reconstruction, which is a demo rebuild, as most folks refer to it, is probably our most lengthy and most involved construction and timber project type. And so for it to take on average from the day they started their application to key turnover, no issues, punch list has been completed. Sometimes that means just fixing an outlet cover or anything like that, but key turnover occurred 205 days from when they started their application, the day that they started it. So as Justin mentioned earlier, we are building in more efficiencies. We're able to do this and squash these timelines quicker at a more efficient pace while also meeting not only the objective, but a beautiful home at that as well.
As you've probably seen in the photos, they don't all look the same. You know, we're not trying to build like a government housing. You know, we do have a set number of floor plans that we're using, but I think it's 9. The smallest house we build is 1,100 square feet. We can't do garages or swimming pools or anything like that. We can't do sheds. Can't do sheds, right?
Not unless required by the HOA.
Yeah, the HOA has to require that. You know, but what you see, it is a great home. And everything is, of course, passing all your local building codes. Everything's, you know, permitted and inspected, elevated. And there's actually a process where the homeowner gets to pick out some of the finishes. You know, we have kind of a set number of cabinet colors and countertop colors and flooring colors, but you know, it's at least a nice experience for someone to go through.
Yeah. Next slide. And here is our 100th completion in the Hurricane Ian housing program. And so we're very excited about this, particularly this project as well. This is located in Punta Gorda, Florida. So this is in Charlotte County, like I said, Southwest Florida. It was recently completed in March 2025. So this was completed just last month. But it's a beautiful 2-bed, 2-bath, completely elevated, includes not only a ramp, but it also includes impact resistant doors, windows, as well as a resilient roof system. And so I'm now going to turn it over to Leisha.
You know the cost on this one?
I do not off the top of my head, unfortunately. Thank you. Leisha?
Thank you, Audrey. Next slide, please. Infrastructure repair program will distribute funding to eligible subrecipients such as counties, cities, other municipalities, and public universities to help fund the infrastructure repair and replacement improvement type projects in the impacted communities, all 47. Eligible activities on the infrastructure side tend to lean a little more towards water, sewer, flooding, stormwater, potable, all types of water. And we also come in and harden buildings. We can put buildings that are essential to a community's safety and health. We can come in and do permanent generators and different activities like that. Priority in this program will be given to projects that are going to have the most impact of the community, going to work in that LMI with the LMI benefit, and also those in the physically constrained counties, and we'll use the definition in Florida statute, which is 218.67 Prin 1. Additionally, a lot of times these infrastructure projects incorporate mitigation type activities that really help build resiliency for future storms and help reduce future risk. Next slide, please. In addition to the infrastructure program, we're going to run a hazard mitigation grant match program in doing the government thing, HMGMP. This program really allows the communities that apply and receive FEMA hazard mitigation funds to receive the last 25% from us. Typically, that is the municipality's responsibility. And so we come in and assist from that. Here again, priority is going to be given to the projects that are going to have the biggest thing in their immediate communities. We're going to be looking at the LMI benefit and prioritizing some of those physically constrained counties. A lot of these projects are going to look similar to the infrastructure projects. We do structural elevation. We take care of localized flood risk reduction, infrastructure retrofitting, building hardening. We do a lot of permanent generators on this side as well. To qualify for this, the project is going to have to meet both the FEMA eligibility requirements and the HUD eligibility requirements. Most of the time, these are going to overlap almost perfectly. Where there could be a discrepancy, and if a community is ever concerned, please don't hesitate to contact us and ask. But we tend to go a little more for the permanent type solution. So a permanent generator versus a portable generator would be an example. There is a handout at the front table where everybody walked in that will give a little more details on the eligible activities for HMGMP. Next slide, please. Infrastructure process is followed. We have developed that action plan that is currently posted, and we did this with the unmet needs assessment and input from the citizens and the stakeholders like yourself. We were fortunate enough to speak to people in all of the 47 counties. And we also were able to hold about 12 stakeholder and citizen workshops to get more information. Once the action plan is approved, we will move right into the design to ensure that our program activities focus on the long-term restoration and resiliency type improvements that will be meaningful in each community. During this application cycle, instructions for applications will be posted. We will have fillable forms out there that will assist the municipalities that are interested. We will also have our contact information out there, so are very happy to answer questions along the way. If you have questions on eligibility or anything else related to it, we're happy to talk to you. After the application period is concluded, we will score and award projects, and throughout the project, we will be in constant contact with all our municipalities for regular technical assistance, monitoring, and oversight. And also, we do site visits. We love to come see the progress of the different infrastructure type projects as things develop. I'm going to turn it back to Justin.
Thank you both very much. So here on the screen, you have the email address that you can send comments to. You can also reach out to this address, find any of us. I also have cards here that I'm happy to hand out. This email address is checked. I promise you, people are sending them to me and all of us often. You can also do things the classic way and send mail. It will reach us eventually. Not sure how long it takes, but it gets there. And then if I know we have, I think, some public comment cards, we probably will have some public comment that comes in on the chat. So we can give everybody a couple minutes if you do want to fill out a card or if anybody online would like to put a question in, you're more than welcome. So Jane Sullivan, go ahead and probably address your question. So yes, technically, so the question online is, will we have to wait for action plan before being able to utilize hazard mitigation grant program match for infrastructure when submitting applications for hazard mitigation? So Jane, you can, depending on where you're from, if as long as you're in an eligible community, you can, on your application to DEM for the FEMA dollars, you can say that you're planning to utilize the 25% match from FloridaCommerce, but we will not be able to award a match until there has been an award made by DEM. So once the 75% is awarded to the community, then we're able to do the 25% match once we have our programs all approved by HUD. But you can, like I was saying, you can make note that you're planning to utilize the FloridaCommerce match. So Jane's follow-up question, for low to moderate income, does it solely have to be based on HUD's maps? Do you want to take that?
So,
Complicated answer.
well, yes, so this is, I think I'm going to answer this in two parts. Does every project have to be an LMI project, low to moderate income? The answer is no. 70% of the projects that we will complete with the 23-24 funds, including the infrastructure side and the housing side, must meet LMI, the low to moderate income requirement. There is another 30% that's going to be over there that doesn't have to meet it. It will be an urgent need type project. And the expectation is with urgent need, a lot of times that you have to provide that explanation, and it's going to need to be in the file. And typically, if you are, as a municipality, are requesting something that's going to be urgent need, you understand what that urgent need is and can articulate it and give us the write-up that helps support it. And also, these are typically projects that are ready to go pretty quickly to meet the immediate needs of the community. And then based on the HUD map. So the HUD map shows that the eligible communities to participate in the 23-24 storms. So you have to be inside of one of those 47 communities to receive some of Florida's distribution, part of the 925 million that we'll be distributing.
And if you're still on, is that helpful? In the meantime, so on the screen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. This is Jane Sullivan from the city of Newberry in Alachua County. The reason why I was asking about low to moderate income is HUD publishes other maps on, the HUD exchange showing the LMI communities. The issue with my particular community is all of the census tract data includes unincorporated Alachua County areas. So it messes up our LMI information. However, if I go into separate blocks, not block group, but the smallest denominator, the block itself, and I look at HUD's income limits and I look at census data, I can draw a comparison that the percentages based on HUD's income limit data you know, for say, for instance, a family of 4, which is what they usually utilize in their calculations, I can show that I have a much higher LMI than taking the entire city. So maybe I should have asked, do we have to use LMI for the entire city, or can I break it out, or can we utilize a survey method?
Hi, yes. So great question. And first of all, you can utilize the survey method. However, it can be a beast of a project, just to be very upfront with you. But we will calculate the LMI based on the area of benefit. So you do not have to utilize the whole city if the city is not going to be the entire area of benefit. If it is only going to be a couple of census groups, that's what we'll capture and calculate your LMI based on. And we are happy to have a side conversation with you to take a look at that if you'd like to.
Yeah, Jane, please reach out. We can put can we chat back to her and give her your email address?
We can.
Yeah.
Yeah, put a picture of our cards or something.
Very good question, Jane. Your community's lucky to have you. Same meeting, like, you know what you're talking about. So on the screen here, these QR codes, so top right being citizen updates blue, and then left side being green for stakeholder updates. So if you scan those, you'll go to be able to give us your contact information, sign up, and then we'll keep you updated on, you can do both, you can do one or the other. We'll keep you updated on that. I know Audrey had previously mentioned the survey, or the assessment, I'm sorry. So what we like to do for our housing site is we do a pre-assessment. So before we've opened applications, we want to give those homeowners the opportunity to go ahead and get their information in. Because that way when we open up applications, they'll be first in line. And so they will get an invitation to apply before anybody else.
Yes.
So.
And there will be a few questions because it will start that phasing process. So it will start to ask the income as well as where they're located.
Yeah.
So kind of that first hurdle of eligibility will be satisfied in a way. And I put that in quotations because there's obviously a lot more documentation. But yeah, just want to put that out there that anyone who is in a vulnerable population as well as the identified mid area, we do have our pre-application assessment live.
I wondered if you all have a cost reasonableness standard that you apply to the contracts when you're evaluating them for overhead and profit.
Yes.
I read the HUD audit from 2022 from the Hurricane Irma rebuild.
Mhm.
You saw some of the overhead and profit rates for those contracts, which seem pretty.
Yes. So ours is capped now at 12.5% overhead, 12.5% on profit. So 25% of O&P in total that cannot exceed 25%. That's the industry standard. We also utilize Xactimate to narrow down not only that geographical region, but also locale based so that we have an understanding of what the market rate is for materials as well as construction based line items. So that's how we utilize cost reasonableness.
Yeah, Monroe County is different than
Yes.
Panhandle.
Yes. And then forward facing on our policies and procedures, every housing project is capped at 350,000.
And that includes, design, everything.
Yes, that's all encompassing. So yeah, and as Justin stated, there is a separate cap for Monroe County, but they're not part of our 2023 and 2024 storms. So I'll save that one.
They're in the Irma program.
Yes. So yeah, in reference to that.
Helpful.
Yeah, could I? Thanks, that was helpful. A separate question is about, it seemed like for Irma, you chose IEM received a big contract, and some of these larger, general, I don't know how to describe that type of firm, but like a big firm that's doing all the subcontracting. Would that be the model for this?
So it'll be probably a little bit of a different procurement model. So IEM was the vendor on the Hurricane Irma storm that was helping us do construction management. And so that contract ended almost a year ago now. But we have worked with other vendors, and Hurricane Michael, that was very successful, and a different vendor that is on the Hurricane Ian program. And so they've managed things a little bit differently. They're kind of our boots on the ground. You know, it's hard to run it all from Tallahassee. So that's how we're able to be in the communities. And that also gives us the opportunity to have intake centers in communities so that when people want to apply or have an interest, you know, there's an office in their own community or at least close by.
And so if a nonprofit in Gainesville that does housing redevelopment wanted to receive some of these funds, would they go through IEM in all likelihood?
No, so I am, so we haven't selected a vendor.
Whoever.
This one? Sure. So the funds, when we're doing housing, so the actual homeowner would apply to the state directly. So a local nonprofit, we would love the support of that person to help get, you know, be the communication kind of person in between to let that individual know the opportunity that is here. But the funds wouldn't leave the state to go to the nonprofit. The nonprofit could help, you know, get folks to the program though, kind of be a conduit. Yeah.
Betsy Riley with Alachua County. Is there any possibility that this could be a county-run program? We have extensive programs already in place. We have the SHIP program. We have our Alachua County Energy Efficiency Program. We do all of the vetting already for low-income to moderate households. We have a phenomenal relationship with our local nonprofits that do this sort of rebuilding work. And I, especially since the companies you'll be working with will be competing with different counties, is there a possibility that Alachua County could serve as the place where the applications come in and we could use our local resources that we have this phenomenal infrastructure already in place?
Sure. So the way that the disaster recovery housing programs run are through the state. So the only way that a community does it is if HUD makes the decision to give the community funds directly. So we do have to run the housing through us, but each aside with the other types of programs, infrastructure and things like that, that would go through your local community.
Right, because Alachua County does run state programming already. So we are our petroleum cleanup program. We run that on behalf of the state. We're in conversations now to do septic cleanup on behalf of the state. So we have a lot of experience as a subcontractor for the state on this.
Yeah, we'd love to remain a good partner and work with you on everything with the housing program.
Just not give the money to our nonprofit.
Yeah, we unfortunately can't do that.
Related question, and maybe kind of following the same lines, are there opportunities for the state to work directly with more localized contractors within the different service areas? And are there any type of incentives or priorities for that, knowing that our contractors locally know the area, know the people, often are going to provide the same services at lower costs? I'm curious if there are incentives or priorities to work with local vendors, basically.
So we do utilize our LTRGs as far as like a conduit for case management or liaison with case management. We do prioritize that relationship. But kind of as we stated earlier, I mean, local vendors, we would love for them to apply, especially as general contractors. Once we have those procurements open, and that, that'll be a different procedure and process. But yeah, just as far as a direct allocation to somebody directly from us, unfortunately, that's just it's not an avenue that exists.
So when we do the procurement for contractors, anybody could technically apply for the procurement. Typically, we do things through, the different state procurement avenues. But one thing I kind of like Audrey was saying is there is nothing holding anybody local from being a sub to one of the large GCs that we work with. Their capacity is huge. We've built about 5,000 houses and that's typically, they also understand the CDBG DR regs from the federal government. So, but we love to use local talent, and I hear you, and everything you're saying is exactly right. So we haven't made any decisions on how we're going to procure these yet. We're still learning about that, or learning from the communities about how we're going to do that.
Will there be a follow-up session directly targeting feedback from those stakeholders? So is there a future conversation about the procurement process specifically?
Yes, yeah. So when we do write the procurements and we put those out on the street, we post those to the same website that we use for everything here. So all those procurements are out there publicly. And then we always do webinars for the procurements to help walk folks that too.
And just to piggyback a little
These
bit,
are the lists to get on. to
Yeah.
find out about.
Yeah, so this, the floridajobs.org/20, what you can see there, that is the website that has everything on it. So,
I do want to say, there is just a minimum bonding capacity performance as well as payment bonding capacity at the project level as well as just an overall as a company. So just want to keep that in mind, when in talking about these procurements. So.
You're writing the procurement. Is there any reason why you can't open it up to a local municipality to apply?
So for the direct, so it's constituent-based housing. So we work directly with the constituent. I mean, the only other capacity we have is working on the subrecipient side and entering an agreement as a subrecipient or as a local municipality. I mean, there is a possibility to spearhead multiple applications under an LTRG, but we would be working and entering in a grant agreement directly with the constituent. So, and it's not a reimbursement based. We would assign a general contractor. They complete the housing repair and replacement activities, and any mitigation activities that should fall from that. So, I mean, that's how these funds are to be utilized if the state is the receiving or is the grantee receiving these funds.
What sort of oversight do you have over the general contractors? I know there was a big scandal in New Orleans when a big company came in after Hurricane Katrina, did a bunch of rebuilds. Then 2 years later, the houses were falling apart.
So we do not only just HUD has quarterly monitorings, and if you receive a certain amount of money from HUD, which is over 500 million, you're considered a spender type. And so specifically, if you are under this certain spender type, you have to be monitored at minimum 4 times within a year. So
also all of our projects have to go through, all the permitting process to the local governments. In Florida, luckily, we have very strong building, requirements here. So everything is permitted and then passing inspections,
Yeah.
inspected, passing inspections. And then we also require all of our GCs to warranty homes as well.
yeah, and warranties range for your general 5 years. I apologize, 1 year general, 2 year mechanical engineering and plumbing, and 10-year structural.
Mhm.
So
And we don't pay until it's 100% completed and passing inspection. And then we do another inspection on top of the local municipality inspection.
right, Sarah Gill,
Yeah, I'm gonna interpret.
Okay.
Sobrevivir a un huracán es bien fuerte. To have survived a hurricane is very intense. Mi esposo y yo estábamos en casa y un árbol cayó sobre ella. We were in the house and a tree fell over it. And Helen, in Helene. Me ha parecido muy interesante escucharlos. Mi oído es mejor que mi habla en inglés. I've been very interested in hearing what you have to present. I can hear better than I can speak in English. Nosotros estamos ya finalizando la reconstrucción de nuestra casa. We are now finalizing the reconstruction of our house. Es un mobile home viejo que ahora es una casa de madera nueva. It's an old mobile home, but now it's a new wood built house. Reconstruimos con un 30% de asistencia de FEMA. We reconstructed with about 30% of the costs from FEMA assistance. 30% donaciones. 30% donations. Y en este momento asumimos un 40% de una deuda que está más en tarjetas de crédito, intereses altísimos. And the 40% that was left, we've incurred a lot of debt, mostly on credit cards that have very high interest rates. Mi pregunta es, ¿podríamos aplicar nosotros alguno de los programas para poder solventar un poco la crisis que pasamos? El año anterior teníamos unos proyectos diferentes, pero todo cambió. Yeah, so just wondering if there's any chance through the programs to receive assistance towards the debt and all the crises that we have been through. Because we had different plans with what was going on. Muchas gracias. Es interesante conocer de ustedes y me gustaría que muchas otras personas lo supieran porque no saben lo que me he capacitado y lo que he aprendido en estos 6, 7 meses.
And I appreciate your presentation. It's very interesting to hear what you have to say, and I've learned a lot in these last 6 months.
Thank you. First, I'm just very sorry for everything you've had to go through. These are very emotional, this program, the folks that we serve, the stuff that people have been through, it's very difficult and challenging. Unfortunately, the federal regs don't allow us to reimburse costs.
Desafortunadamente no permiten reembolsar los costos.
But if there is, still an unmet need, I think it's still worth applying to see how we could assist and help.
I want to add.
Sí, mitigación de riesgos.
Risk mitigation,
So when you say risk mitigation, such as like an elevation component or anything like that?
hablando de cómo
No, de lo que puede, de lo que estamos ahorita pensando en lo que está por venir. ¿Sí? Y aún tenemos árboles y de nuestro vecino también.
So more along the lines of risks that they could face in future storms. So looking at in Gainesville, as you can see, we have lots of giant trees. So they're speaking of some trees that are potentially looming that could be a danger in future storms.
Es más, el árbol que destruyó nuestra casa no era nuestro,
And
era nuestro vecino.
so the tree that ended up destroying their house was actually the neighbors, on the neighbor's
Mhm.
property, that wasn't even on their.
Entonces, hay otros de nuestros vecinos que
We have many trees around in our property, dangerous for us. Those trees are not our responsibility. Those are our neighbor responsibility. Now I am unemployment right now. I am retirement. I try to use all my tools to recover my property. Thanks God, we received some funds for him. But it wasn't enough. I know they are not going to solve my problem to buy a new house. It wasn't my intention to do that. But the money that I put to recover my life, my family life, was months that the money that I had in my saving account before they happened. Fine, we are now in the process to go back to our house, but we have with the same problem because many trees around our property. We are living in a Redondo area. And I asked to my neighbor, hey, listen, in September, I lost my house because my neighbor, he doesn't care about the trees. Now I'm concerned about that tall tree. In the future, it could be happening again. Could you help me with those things? I'm sorry, man, I don't have money. It's not my fault. It's the natural, could be happen, maybe not. So I'm concerned because that day, I'm never going to forget that day because we were there. And I take care of my trees and my property, and I feel safe. That day, we are living now, thanks God, because the tree fell and mashed our house. That what we need to do is to continue with our lives, but it's difficult, especially when you don't have too much income. So when she said she's concerned about me because I am the only one who is working. Who was working because I worked for a family, American family for 7 years. I was working as caregiver I take care of a senior 92 and 93 years for 7 years, every single day, 27/4. And I make my money. I use my money to have a good life, good house. It was all, but I lost everything. I lost my job, I lost my house, and I lost my peace. And almost I lost my life. I know, it's not your problem, but it's good when we have the opportunity to express our feelings, to express our concerns. Every day we know different news around the world, and the weather, the climate, is difficult. So my main concern right now is fine. I'm going to manage with my budgets and everything to fix but in the future, I don't want to suffer or to put my life and my family life at risk. I don't know if you will be able to, how do you call this, mitigation? Do you have any kind of programs of the cities? When you saw the people like me, 63 years old, doesn't have the opportunity to pay. I try to find the company, they say, to take this trees, to put it down, 4,000.
And so, I mean, part of our program and what we do is we do look at trees on the property. And if they do overhang over a structure or the footprint, we do remove those. But, and as Justin said, I think that it's worth applying because even if there aren't, we're able to do a damage assessment of the property as it is right now, right? And we're able to utilize the funding that we have and seeing what eligible activities based on that assessment, we're able to move forward. So I definitely think it's worth applying, even, just to get yourself into the door and getting that damage assessment, right? I think that it's worth going that extra step because it could result in a, mitigating or risk adverse activity. So I definitely think it's worth applying. I know that it's not going to solve every problem that you have, but I think it at least is a step forward in the right direction. Absolutely. And we have that pre-application assessment. After this is over, I can give you my card and you can email me directly. And I have the pre-application assessment in Spanish as well as English. Yes, and so that way you can start the application process. And then once we have our application cycle open, you'll be the first amongst invited to apply, to complete the application as is. Yes, sir.
Welcome. Thank you. And then I know we have one hand in the chat. Yes, can you hear us, Natalie? You want to unmute and speak?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. My name is Natalie Evans. I'm a public affairs specialist with the Small Business Administration, Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience. And I just wanted to mention that the Small Business Administration Disaster Assistance application deadlines has reopened for businesses, homeowners, renters, and nonprofits to help with recovery impacted by Hurricane Helene and Milton. For Hurricane Helene, the deadline is April 27, 2025. That's for physical damage, and in June 30th, 2025 for economic injury. And for Milton, the economic injury deadline is July 11th, 2025. Relief is still available for Florida residents and businesses.
Thank you. That's very helpful to share. I appreciate you saying that. And then Betsy Riley put a question in the chat asking how is statewide resiliency planning being accounted for? We know shorelines are getting smaller, that hurricanes are causing more and more damage in coastal areas. How is the state deciding what needs to be more resilient and what needs to not be rebuilt? So programs that we funded in the past, one thing being called voluntary home buyout, is giving a community the opportunity to buy folks homes that have continuously flooded. So that's one thing that we've done in the past. And then Betsy, we work very closely with the Chief Resiliency Officer of the state of Florida. His name's Dr. Wes Brooks. So we're constantly working with DEP and other state departments on resiliency efforts. If we do build a home back that has been damaged from a hurricane, we do raise that above the flood lines. So we always are keeping top of mind in our programs. Is there any other questions in the audience that we can help with? We're good. Thank you very much again. Please scan those QR codes, get the information, stay connected, and also take down that website. And then we're going to give, if you need a business card from any of us, we have those as well. But thanks again for taking the time tonight, and